Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the basement of somebody else's house. This is another priest's house in a little town in North Dakota. We're going to be spending the day together tomorrow. Day off, catching up, little fraternity, good stuff. So I'm coming to you with only one screen tonight, and we will manage to make it through. The banner tonight is the untold story of American Catholicism. And I don't think it's generally untold. I think if you've spent long enough listening to me ramble on the internet, you might have heard bits and pieces of it. And I still feel like it needs to be told again because it's not very well known. What is this untold story of American Catholicism? Now, if you go back to the 1980s and the 1990s, you find a very peculiar thing could happen. And this is a story where I don't have firsthand, but I do have secondhand knowledge of this. You might have a perfectly fine young man in the seminary, and he happens to have a devotion to the Rosary. Now, if you know anything about Catholicism, you know the Rosary is one of the most venerable, popular piety prayers that we have. It's not liturgical, but it certainly has a very deep place in the Catholic consciousness. It's about 1,000 years old at this point, and millions of Catholics pray it even daily. So you would think, wow, this guy, he likes the Rosary. He's probably a pretty pious candidate. But in those days, men who appreciated the Rosary, who prayed the Rosary in the 80s and the 90s in the seminary, they might get kicked out for that. You might find that to be a rather odd or surprising thing. Why would you get kicked out of seminary for praying, especially a prayer with such a long history? But that sort of thing did happen. People who would have affirmed the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist under the appearances of bread and wine, that Jesus is truly present body, blood, soul, and divinity, which can be best described by the doctrine of transubstantiation. You might think that that's bread and butter Catholicism, that theory of transubstantiation as articulated by Thomas Aquinas would be the sort of thing that you are supposed to learn and understand while you are in seminary. But there's one somewhat famous Catholic priest who got kicked out of seminary in the 1980s and had to go find a new bishop and a new seminary in order to be ordained because of an argument that he had with his professor over transubstantiation. So this is the status of most, not all, but most American seminaries through the 80s and the 90s, that people with a sense that Vatican II had created a new church, that everything that had come before Vatican II was now suspect, and everything that had come after was good. Those were the ones who were running the seminaries. Those were the ones who were in charge of who gets in to the priesthood and who is left out of the priesthood. That all in various institutions began to change through the course of the 1990s, that there was new leadership coming into the seminaries. There was a concerted effort by people who were by bishops and priests who were concerned about this, about the formation that the men were receiving, that they went and took on these, what I would call corrupted and decadent institutions. And it wasn't only a matter of theology, but there was quite a bit of moral problems in many of these seminaries. If you were, towing the line with with whatever you were supposed to be saying, if you were quoting the right theologians, if you were, then you could get away with quite a lot of bad behavior, including same-sex behavior in a seminary. That was something that was not being policed. In fact, I again, have this not firsthand myself seeing it, but from reliable testimony that there were men who got kicked out of seminary for reporting that sort of thing. They saw something and they went and talked to the rector about it. And then the rector of the seminary decided that they needed to go because of their psychological rigidity. Yes, how about that? So there was this concerted effort to take these seminaries back. And I think a very hidden effort, that this would not have been something that was manifest to the world, that this would have been a quiet battle to take back these certain institutions. And from my own perspective, I got to go through of these institutions after that battle had been won. So the seminary in Detroit, that turnaround process began in the early 90s with Archbishop John Nienstedt, who unfortunately did not come to a good end. He did engage in what appears, as far as I could tell, to be a cover-up in about 2010, and he was removed from the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis in 2015. So he began that process in Detroit. So he's got kind of this mixed reputation. He did a good thing that I'm happy about, and he did this other thing that's like, well, that's not good. And St. Paul Seminary, beginning in the early 2000s. The status of St. Paul Seminary was so bad in the 1990s that my bishop in the Diocese of Fargo, he was on the board of St. Paul Seminary, that he would not send any of his men there. So, yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Now, why am I talking about this all of a sudden? Well, on Monday, I was at the Canon Law Society of America convention. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I was at this convention for this week. And the keynote address on Monday, they had this sociologist who was presenting on a survey of priests. I think it was conducted in 2021 or 2022. I actually participated in this survey. My bishop recommended it. So this survey and some of the data on that. And there was this slide. There's one of these slides on his data points that really stunned me. It broke down ordination cohorts, so by what year you were ordained in, and your self-identification theologically. So how would I describe my own theology? As you go forward from about 1975, you see a dramatic shift in the theological self-description of priests by year of ordination. In 1975, a pretty sizable majority, probably a supermajority, would have described themselves as progressive or very progressive. By the time you get to 2022, you get to a majority of priests ordained in 2022 describing themselves as conservative or very conservative. And that right there is the fruit of this untold story of American Catholicism. And I was going to show you this slide because I have access to all of the slides of the convention. And I went looking for it, and I was just getting frustrated and puzzled. I remember the slide. It's like burned into my memory. This was, I'd kind of known this, but seeing the data put out there in a visual format was very striking. But as you can see here, maybe you can't see it, generational dynamics. This is where I was expecting to find the slide. And underneath that, we've got this very small text that says data embargoed until November of 2023. Oh, isn't that interesting? What happens in November of 2023 is the annual United States Conference of Catholic Bishops meeting. And looks like they're going to wait to get their eyes on that data themselves before they're going to release that to the general public. So anyway, that in my mind is the untold story of American Catholicism, of the retaking of the seminaries by people who I think are more supposed to be responsible, and the effect that is having on generations of priests now in ministry, and the rollout effect that's going to have across Catholicism in the United States for decades to come. And nobody's telling that story except for me. But the good news is that you're not stuck with just me anymore. We've got Jacob, Andrew, and Valerie. How are you all doing?
Hi, how you doing? Doing all right.
Jacob and Andrew, are you guys behaving yourselves?
We went to the gym.
Yes, sir.
Nice. And so now you've got to feed Andrew because he's hungry.
Yep.
All righty. Yeah, he's probably already hungry. I remember being in college.
He's 20. He's always hungry.
Yes,
sir. Yeah. Oh, hey, man, just work it while you got it.
Yeah.
He's 6'4" and 20 years old.
Oh, okay. Well, he can eat a lot then.
Yep.
He doesn't look 6'4" on the camera right now.
Just you wait. Just like PBK.
He's leaning down. He's like,
is he condescending to you then?
I guess. Yeah. But this is a really interesting story you're telling about taking this. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's actually kind of like Andrew Breitbart talks about, like, what's downstream of what, and you have to capture the high ground, and that really affects what else happens. So yeah.
And it's there's something to be said about the middle, right? Because this was an observation I made to one of my colleagues at the convention, is that you had a fair number of guys who wanted to just be middle of the road, right? They just want to be good priests. They just want to run the program that they're given. And I'm pretty daggone sure that since 1975, the road, what counts as the middle of the road, has now changed a lot. Because, the priest that I'm staying with, he's a good man, and he just wants to be a middle of the road priest, right? He doesn't have a whole lot of big ideas. He's coming to a small town in North Dakota. He's just going to take care of the people here. But like the program that he's given is very different than what they were getting in 75, 85, 95.
I mean, that's part of what the postmodernist idea, I think, really starting with Bernays in the 1920s. He recognized that there was this idea of, some people just want to be in the middle. And if you want to move society, instead of staying within the discourse, you can kind of move the edges, which also moves the discussion. And that's how they made a lot of advances. And I think that's what we kind of have to undo, is you can't have dishonest bargaining positions. Like, you can't have an honest discussion with somebody who's taking bargaining positions. You know what I mean?
Right. So like you're approaching it like, hey, we've got ideas. Let's just play around with these ideas. And the other party's like, I want something, and I'm approaching this like a business negotiation.
Yeah. I'm so when you're trying to decide, okay, what are we going to do? If I actually tell you, okay, this is what I think we should do, and the other person has an idea we should do something else, and they think, if I give an opening shot, right? So, for example, let's talk about, I guess you could talk about like gay marriage or whatever, right? So, like, if I'm like, no gay marriage, and the other person's like, civil union, but if they push it beyond and they're like, hey, gay marriage, then maybe the middle of the roaders are like, hey, let's take a middle position, right? And like the middle position, like if you keep on pushing that out, I actually think that's what happened with Trump. Trump was like the guy that was like, he was the bargainer,
So he was a populist, so he wasn't a true conservative.
he wasn't a true conservative at all, but I think
Yeah.
he did a lot of opening shots, right? He did a lot of things like he was trying to get somewhere, and he would like his wall, right? I don't think he actually wanted a big beautiful wall across, I think he wanted some fencing, and he figured if I talk about a big beautiful wall, then maybe I'll get some fencing, which he did.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, bargaining, and yeah, it's a problem if you go to a business negotiation just to discuss ideas with interesting people. Like you're not gonna have a good time
Yeah.
because they're coming and they got their elbows greased and they're ready to start hitting people, and you're just gonna get pushed around like that. Yeah, but the thing about the Catholic Church is we've got this monarchical structure, and the bishop can send in a new rector, and if he sends in the right guy, should be a general, right, and not an intellectual. Then the general can go in there, and in the space of about 2 years, they could have 95% staff turnover at the seminary, which is what happened at St. Paul Seminary because they sent the right guy in there, and he just.
I'm happy to see it. I was actually I was talking with John Van Donk, and his daughter works at a Catholic charity.
Okay.
And, I've been volunteering. I told you at a Catholic domestic violence shelter, and so like I think what's missing is leadership, but by like there's supposedly a priest, but for the shelter he comes on Easter and Christmas. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Twice a year.
Yep. He doesn't really have any say in what goes on there.
And I just the people in the shelter, they need like this shelter used to be run by 200 nuns. 0 nuns left. 0 nuns left.
Maybe I should join.
Yeah, I think you're a little too tall.
To become a nun? Yeah.
A little too tall to be a nun. 6 feet's the max.
So do you know the Sisters of the Good Shepherd? Have you heard
do not.
That? So they're the ones who were known as the Magdalens.
Okay.
And the Magdalene laundries. And Trey, you're in Puerto Rico.
Oh gosh,
what are you doing?
This guy.
You're in Puerto Rico. Go be in Puerto Rico.
Reception girls.
You know why I'm here? I'm waiting before our meeting that I am helpful for our foundation of comfort that we're working on together.
Yes, we have a meeting in 40 minutes. Yes. So yeah. He's such a good man. He's in Puerto Rico, but he's still early, 40 minutes early for a meeting, as opposed to finding some girls to talk to.
There's a priest in the room. Come on, act decent. Come on.
I encourage talking to girls.
Thank you.
Talking's fine.
Yeah.
I would be doing it if I wasn't a priest.
Thank you, Father Eric. Thank you.
Oh man, Adam from Ireland. He was telling me all about this young lady that he's meeting and all that, and I was like, 2 thumbs up, Adam. Get her done.
Get her done. Yep. Get married, have lots of kids.
That's right.
That's the Catholic way in life.
That's the Catholic way in life, cheaper by the dozen.
So the nuns, yeah, like the trying to get. I mean, so for example, there was this family that just moved in, lots of kids, single mother. She fainted and had to go to the hospital. And like, we have to take care of the kids as the staff. And like, all the staff wants to leave at 5 p.m. because as opposed to when there used to be 200 nuns, guess what?
Yep, they just, this is life.
They
These are
did
my
not
children.
go home. Yeah, the nuns did not go home. They lived there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, man, that's another untold story. Is just the absolute collapse of women's religious orders, Just, like the chart in about 1970, it just goes straight down.
Well, they threw those Sisters of the Good Shepherd under the bus. They really did.
Yeah?
Especially in Ireland. They
Okay.
completely threw them under the bus. Like the Catholic Church has been apologizing in ways that I think is just way too much. It's nice to be like apologizing for any mistake you ever made, but at the same time, you can't not defend thousands and thousands of nuns who did a lot of hard and good work, despite any like problems that they were. So they were very strict. Guess what? Irish Catholic women are strict.
It's just kind of like that, yeah.
I think that the nuns were less strict than if they had not nun people doing the same work. So like, I don't like the fact they threw the nuns under the bus. I don't.
Yeah. It's not good tactics to apologize to people who have no intention of forgiving you.
Never apologize to someone who will not forgive you, and never apologize to someone for wrongs that were not done to them.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I will not apologize to you for a wrong I did to somebody else.
Yeah. Interesting. Correct. I just never thought about it. I think so. I don't think a whole lot of that stuff would have come out until the 90s or the early 2000s, though, and the problem was there already. It's like in a lot of these communities, they got rid of the habit, like they just changed everything overnight. We're not going to wear our habits. We're not going to pray and live in community anymore. We're going to start being career women or something. I don't know, but and it's just like, that's not how this works, and it's not going to work if you try and work it like that. So yeah, that's another just a precipitous decline. The only women's religious orders that are having any vocations nowadays are the ones that wear the habit, live in community, pray in community, and do their mission. So like
religious communities?
Actually religious, yes. Instead of just being, some single woman who I have to call sister for some reason. Show me. I could be in my sweatpants right now, and I got my collar on because I need to. If Mark Lefebvre was here, he'd be very proud of the signals I'm sending into the world. So,
I very much approve of you wearing your collar, Father Eric. I bought Peterson 2 collared shirts. Unfortunately, his wife gave me the wrong size. So
yes, it's sad when it happens. I ordered some Italian clerical shirts like a year back, and I'm scared to open them because they came in the mail and I didn't try them on. So it's like, I sure hope that was the right size. See, I told you he would approve of that.
I got the size his wife gave. I considered buying a size larger just in case, but I didn't know if collared shirts already come a little bit oversized because they're so stuffy.
Yeah. It depends on the style too. Did you just get him with the little plastic tab that you stuff in there?
So I got him 2 of them. One of them was black with an actual collar and long sleeve. And if I remember correctly, the other one was light blue, like it was a Protestant one with a tab and short sleeves. So
Protestant and global South Catholicism. When you get to a really hot place, they stop wearing the black.
Makes
Who would
sense.
have thought? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this problem with Catholic charities not having enough nuns and priests?
Well, that's
Catholicism 2.0.
Catholicism 2.0. I'm gonna have to see what's in the update before I install it. Sometimes
It's like Vatican II, but better.
it's like Vatican II, real Vatican II. Yes, my contention that real Vatican II has never been tried. Actually, it has. It has. The best place that Vatican II was embodied was in the 1983 Code of Canon Law. They integrated that, and it's. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect because it ain't, and we shouldn't expect that kind of perfection. But it's pretty daggone good the way it works. If we decide that we're going to work it, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can have the best Code of Canon Law in the world, but if these hosers aren't applying it, then it doesn't do you any good. Yeah. No, man, it's the solution to the vocations crisis is just bread and butter Catholicism, as far as I'm concerned. Say the mass well, preach the gospel, don't be afraid. Do Eucharistic piety, encourage people to pray the rosary. Bible studies are fine. They're a little new, but I think they're working. So
encourage people to have kids, because if they have lots of kids, there will be one to take a hit for the team.
Yeah, take a hit for the team.
You know where I heard that first? Supreme Court Justice Scalia.
Yeah, about his son.
About his son. His son is a priest, so he talks about. He was talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I fielded my own baseball team, and one of my sons took a hit for the team. He became a Catholic priest." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. And one thing that I'm starting to come to a greater and greater realization is that the Catholic Church just needs to really lean into the whole all male clergy thing. That is just like a foothold of, and I'm going to say this, I've said it on BOM, it's a foothold of anti-feminism that's actually really good, and praise God that we've managed to hold on to it. And even like Pope Francis has just shot it down every time it's come up. He calls it female machismo.
Good.
And only he could get away with that, right? Like I go around talking like that, I'm going to get crucified. But yeah, I've just noticed, letting men be men and women be women is actually something we got to do. We just got to encourage. You're always going to have that 10% that doesn't quite fit in. That's just how the world works.
Yeah, there's some trays in the world.
Trey's just grinning because he doesn't want to say anything.
Oh, okay. Am I ticking Trey off, or am I making him happy? All right. He just, you know what? If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's
Yep. Father, you are a father, so I gotta respect you.
Orthodox Judaism has had a few outbreaks of people trying to, God have mercy on our souls, create female rabbis, and thank God nothing has been egregiously like. We've always had female teachers who I bring up the case of Nechama Leibowitz. She was a traditional Bible teacher, and she, for the entirety of her entire life, everybody called her Mora, which means teacher, and that's what everybody's always called their kindergarten teacher from the very beginning. And she taught Tanakh, Hebrew Bible, to literally hundreds of thousands of people, because she had a radio show in Israel, and she used to have these cards where she would ask questions, and distribute these cards, and people would mail their answers into her, and she would respond to them. And like thousands of people used to mail these cards in every week, right?
Wow.
Yeah, she's known as one of the great, even in ultra Orthodox Judaism. She, like, in Hasidic circles, she was very well respected. But she never went around calling herself a rabbi. She never was in a position of authority over anyone. She was just a great teacher. And so that model of a great female teacher, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
But what all of Orthodox Judaism has been adamant about is a woman cannot be put in a place of authority over men. And even the Orthodox Union, which is the broadest, like, mainline Orthodox, they came out with a response a couple of years ago where they were very, very clear. No, this is not going to happen. Forget it. So.
Yeah. And I think that selling people, it's like a lot of this stuff tends to come out as like a career woman, and it's almost like people are looking at careers as if that's supposed to be, something that should be accessible to everybody and is going to be a place where you're going to find a great deal of meaning and such. And most people's careers are really dumb, that they go and they slave away at their jobs, and hopefully they're doing something productive that's making things better but not worse. But the main reason they're there is to get their pay. Maybe they have a few good times along the way, but it's like all of these careers are just stupid. Like a vanishingly tiny percentage of anybody's career ever was like super interesting and fulfilling. Everybody else, we're just kind of hacking away at it.
So our favorite Native American law professor from Harvard, Elizabeth Warren, wrote a book, The Two Income Trap, with her daughter, where she explains how economically this idea of women working, while it pushes up the numbers in terms of economic, like how you measure economics, it's actually made families poorer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why, like, why is Elizabeth Warren a politician? Like, she's not even good at lying. Like some of these guys, like I won't name names just because that's a little uncouth, but some of these guys, I know they're lying through their teeth, but I just want to believe it because they just seem like such a nice guy. I'd love to sit down and have a beer with them, right? But Elizabeth Warren doesn't have that energy at all. It's just like, you're spewing nonsense right now. You're too smart for that. It's sad and kind of pathetic.
So the sad thing is, in Israel with the religious parties, so there are religious parties they have a rabbinic council which leads them, and then they have people who stand for elections, right? And because in the religious community everybody expects them to be the least honorable, worst people in the world, like the politicians for the religious parties, none of them are well respected people.
But you don't need it. You just need to get me results. Look at evangelical Christian, and I'll say conservative American Catholic support for one Donald John Trump, right? It's like, we were hacking away at Bill Clinton in the 90s for immorality, but if the guy works for us, that's how people are. That's the way they work.
But these members of Knesset, these parliament members for the religious parties, a large percentage of them have ended up in jail.
And Dante put a lot of his fellow Florentinians in hell. We're just realistic about how this works. She never worked for anyone but banks and insurance companies her whole career, often against individuals. Worst person, always protecting banks. It's truly terrible. Yeah, probably. We're getting too political here. It should be a happy place where we don't have to think about that kind of stuff. Anyway, what's the weather like in Los Angeles? Is it 70 degrees and beautiful still?
Yeah. The weather's, especially where I live, like the weather's always nice. Like I live 4 miles from the beach. And so like, yeah, it never gets bad. So yeah.
Preach it, Laura.
Laura should jump on.
She should. She's a free and independent woman, though. She can choose not to. She might have good reasons not to.
She has a family. She has a husband. She has kids.
Yeah. And she's got a video hidden behind PVK's paywall.
She does.
You know, PVK is trying to get me to send money to YouTube. I have sent money to churches. I will not send money to YouTube.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to sit here in ignorance about how women set the rules for their community.
I have lines I will not cross. I will not give money to YouTube beside what I am already giving way too much money to YouTube.
Like with premium, do you pay for premium or do you just...
I don't pay for premium. He kept on telling me you should put an ad blocker on. I don't think that's ethical.
Intellectual property doesn't exist. Like
That's
be
not
honest.
true.
No. I'll
Look,
be honest.
if you don't want to
it's
use,
just oh, it's in my mind, so I own it. Like what? What?
Father Eric, is it ethical to use an ad blocker on YouTube?
Huh.
If you
I'm
don't
not
want to use the service, don't use the service. But like you're using their service despite their terms, like obviously what they're trying, and you're confounding the way they make their money. I don't think it's ethical.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Is it ethical to go use the bathroom when the commercials are on TV? Or is it ethical to turn the radio? You're bypassing.
No, but you're bypassing what their actual rules.
Yeah. Same thing with the going to the restroom using commercials.
No, like.
Oh,
yeah.
You mean like the terms of service that everyone just scrolls through and like nobody reads?
It's their business model. No, they know you go to the bathroom. They know you click through. They know, but like using an actual ad blocker, I don't see how that's ethical.
Ad block doesn't work on mobile, so that's why I brought email. So
Now, I want to
definitely has an ethical base.
address Mr. Frondwith here. He says advertising is unethical. Sometimes I think, but if nobody knows that you have goods and services to trade, then you're kind of hosed. So you have to somehow tell people. Are you leaving, Trey?
No, I have a Catholic question.
You have a Catholic question. Well, good. Ted's here to answer it for you.
Whoa, Father Eric, that might have been the most anti-clerical thing I've ever heard you say.
So when I'm in Puerto Rico right now, I've been noticing a big shift more mainstream evangelicalism with like I was walking down the street and there was like evangelical pop-ups as well as like walking around. I heard more pretty much like prosperity gospel, I guess, coming from like people's radios and everything like that. And I guess the question is, I've been hearing that like I guess the Latino community is moving away from Catholicism to evangelicalism. Is that true? Have you seen that in your guys' experience, or is that made up?
Yep, that's pretty daggone true. So this kind of relates to some of the stuff we were talking about at the beginning, and the way that we'll say. So there was this big movement in the 1960s and 70s, especially in Latin American countries, which is called liberation theology. It's a big thing. It's kind of mixed up with a whole lot of other things, so it could be a little bit hard to suss out sometimes. But the basic point was that, Jesus wants to liberate people, and he wants to liberate people entirely. He doesn't want to just like liberate their souls as if those were somehow separate from the rest of their lives. And so when you are experiencing inequality, Jesus wants to liberate you from that too. And these people who are oppressing you, they're not good because they're oppressing you. And so Jesus is on your side against them. And so if you've got a discerning eye, you may hear, oh boy, that sounds an awful lot like Marxism. And that was the response of the Vatican II under the of the Vatican as well, under the leadership of Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Benedict XVI. It was like, that sounds like you're just practicing Marxism with Catholic flavoring on top. But a lot of the clergy bought into that, and people don't want politics in church, right? What they want is the gospel. And so these evangelicals, they came in, they saw an opportunity, they started preaching something. I guess it's moving more in a prosperity direction, but that sounds a little more gospel-y than, all this liberation theology mumbo jumbo. So basically, my condemnation is that the priests stopped doing their job, stopped preaching the gospel, started preaching politics. And well, what do you expect is going to happen? You want to keep people around for that? It's utterly uninspiring.
Can I ask about an alternative theory? Actually, you go, Ted.
Oh, Trey, I was just gonna say, yes. Are you in Puerto? I don't know if you said you're in Puerto Rico right now. Or you've been in Puerto Rico? Yeah. So I lived in Peru for 2 years on and off, about a half a decade ago, and William Branch is dead on. I mean, you saw this like whole, just like they called it Pentecostal light. It was like Pentecostalism, evangelicalism, sort of like you port in like the Hillsong and the Hillsong and the Bethel music, and then you get slain in the spirit. And so that was one part of it. And they're all like, they're setting up these little churches in like storefronts and that they've rented out of malls. And that was one part. And then the Seventh-day Adventists and the Mormons were just like, and the JWs just everywhere. And it's a sort of like, hey, you've got a really chaotic society. Why don't you come over here where things are like orderly and we have a nice website and the grounds are swept. So saw a lot of that too. Yeah. So I was just gonna say my experience in Peru was like dead on with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm not disagreeing with the liberation theology point, but I guess my question is, evangelicalism just seems like a closer idea towards atheism, pretty much, if I'm being honest, or at least secularity, at least if you're going to Catholicism.
It is flattening things out, I will say that.
Like, the closer your worship looks to normal society, meaning that's what it's going to become, I think. And right. Do you think that it's more from liberation theology, or do you think it's just like secularity? Because I think that
you probably actually need a multi-factor analysis to really get at it, and I don't have all of that. Theology is what I know, so that's the first thing I go for. And I know some people were disgusted with all the politics coming into the church, but there's probably a multitude of reasons. I heard this really funny story once where these guys wanted to get out of the cartels. They'd been baptized Catholic, right? Because lots of people are just kind of baptized Catholic, but they want to get out of the cartels. So thank God, for that. But they couldn't start going to the Catholic Church. Like that wasn't enough. They had to start going to the evangelical church. And like the cartels understand, if you get religion and you bail, then as long as you don't start narking, we'll let you go. This is just a story I heard, so I don't know how true it is. But like the evangelical churches, like that was like, oh boy, that guy's got religion. But the Catholic Church didn't have that valence to it, that this person's getting religion. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
Well,
I have some theories.
Okay. Go for it, Trey. And we'll let you think.
So I think there was one point when we look in the Hebrew Bible, basically distinguishing like different gods. The gods are what they can do for you. The gods are what they service to you. And I
Okay.
think that there's a big importance, at least like Catholicism isn't going to change for you. That's a correct statement, right?
Is it going to change for you individually?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really shouldn't. It definitely will kind of shift a little bit over time because it is a living body, I think. But no, not for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that like, are there prosperity gospel Catholics? That seems like a contradiction.
I bet you if you went into a Catholic church and talked to people, you could find some who would articulate prosperity gospels. But I've never heard a Catholic preacher do that. It's just like
Right. Okay.
we've got the big crucifix up front. Like that cures you of that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
So
pretty
that,
hard to avoid.
right. So I would say that evangelicalism, at the very least, like I can't really think of a prosperity gospel person who is not an evangelical. Like it just doesn't pop in my mind, or at least some non-denominational thing. And it seems like what's going on now is we're sort of this is controversial, but I would say it's like we're pretty much doing a sort of a competition of what the gods are going to do to you. Like if you go to an evangelical church, you can be like, yeah, I want a different coffee. Yeah, I don't like this worship leader. Yes, I want different lights. You go to the Catholic church, they're going to be like, no, God doesn't care. Like, get on with it.
He kind of cares, but he's not just going to do what you want.
Well, because the thing is that God loves you too much to do what you want. I mean, like, I don't know us because, I mean, one of the ways that you can read the Divine Comedy, because I can't be anywhere for more than 10 minutes without bringing up the Divine Comedy, apparently, is to see it as everyone gets what they ask for. So the question is not, are you going to get what you ask for, but are you asking for the right thing? And Trey, like what we're talking about there is like what I call it the magical mindset. It's the fundamental valence that a person has towards reality is: am I going to conform to what exists, or I'm going to try to bend reality towards my desires? Now, there's levels to that, obviously, because like we make houses, we try to order things, but the higher up you go, the more that you're trying to bend things towards yourself, the more dangerous it gets spiritually. And like fundamentally, magic is about manipulation. And so when I look at the prosperity gospel, I would actually call that magic and not religion in the way that I think about things. Because it's about saying, if you do these things, you will be guaranteed these results. So magic is about producing certain results. Religion is about the transformation of the self towards some final telos.
Right. Well, like
I'm getting a nod from Jacob.
People who see God as a big vending machine in the sky. You put in the right coins and you get what you ordered. And like if that's your view of God, then you view God as your servant.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how the Israelites. I mean, when they were talking about Baal, they didn't really say like this is magic. They believed it to be religion in some context, and it seems like it would be more closer to Elijah and like I forgot the Baal worshippers, right?
Yeah.
They're both basically trying to see what their God could do.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So that's why I'm saying it's a mindset, right? Because real like going to an evangelical service isn't magic. I don't know how much actual, like when I say actual, I mean effective magic there is in realities it's currently constituted. But like most of the definitions you would use to define magic, say in the Renaissance, would cover things like the sort of technology we're doing now. And so when I look at the way that we treat religion, it totally makes sense to me that we think, oh yeah, God's probably like that too, right? It's the one way to put it is to take reality from an ends to a means. It's the movement from ends to means. And so I get what you're saying, but again, I think so. Like the weird caveat to this is it's like but God still does things for you. But you just like you have to learn to want the kinds of things God does for you. Right. So it's not that he doesn't do good things for you. It's just that like our tastes are bad. And
He
this again
answers
is why, like,
prayers according to his own will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Techno sorcery. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, techno sorcery, and I want to specifically highlight the role of music, because I think Sam Adams has pointed to that well. It's like how important the music is to that that Sunday morning experience that you've got. And I tell you what, I've been hit by it. Like, I'm not even a praise and worship fan, but I've been like, made to go to these things sometimes out of obedience. And it's like, you just get that four on the floor, you get that really Dionysian and bit where you just kind of getting lulled into a trance there. And then everything starts getting louder and everybody starts shouting and everybody's swaying together. And all of a sudden, you thought you were rational, but you're not actually rational because you're crying now. And why are you crying? And you're vowing to God that you're going to be better, It's just...
Right, but like I would say a Death Grips concert is going to be better than that. Like I'm going to have more raw emotions. And I think that there was...
Man, I mean, have you been to one of these mega churches? They get you.
Yeah, but they don't have mosh pits. If they have mosh pits, that'd be an upgrade. But my point is
only a young man would say that, and I don't mean that as an insult.
No, but my point is I think someone said that like it was a dumb comment, but it kind of hit me in a big way where someone was like, I stopped going to church because I realized I got a better experience at a rock concert. I got the same sort of emotions. And I think that at the very least, what you're trying to do is like, look at this care. Look at this care. Free rock concert. And then when somebody gets it for like less work, it's a good trade.
Yeah, if that's the way you want to handle things, then go for it,
Can we talk about this comment? Because this is like, there have been 3 or 4 times where this is like passed in front of my, and I've never had a chance to respond to something like this. So going to mass to mechanically receive grace is magic. No. And I'd say that's only true if you think that receiving grace is receiving what you want. And like, this is my point. Receiving grace is not receiving what you want. Grace is what you need. Like we like of ourselves actually don't usually want what grace would do to us. Right?
And
like I think of St. Augustine's prayer, Lord, may me chaste, just not today. Right? It's like we don't usually, like, you have to learn to want the things that grace gives you. And so I would say this is actually, again, the absolute not magic. What's promised by going to mass is the capacity to be transformed into the likeness of Christ, not to be given the capacity to transform reality to your desire.
Right. And I think you've read Flannery O'Connor, right?
Once or twice, maybe a little bit.
So Flannery O'Connor, mid-century American Catholic author, and her main theme was the grace of God manifesting in grotesque and extreme situations. And so it's like you read these stories, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is just the most violent and wicked and strange stuff I've ever read in my life. Like, how did this tiny sick Catholic girl in the South write this? But she was
yeah,
really just wrestling with the idea of like, we got this Southern Gothic literary stream. How does the grace of God manifest in that?
Yeah. And it's like being killed by bulls and getting weird tattoos on your back, and like
grandma takes 3 shots in the chest.
Yeah, grandma takes 3 shots in the chest, or you have some vision of heaven in a transfigured hog barn.
Some guy runs off with your fake leg. It's just the most wild. But it's the grace of God in these things. So Flannery O'Connor, yeah. And so basically, and it's like none of the people in the stories either are asking for any grace whatsoever.
That's right.
But it shows up whether you want it or not. That's what the grace of God is like.
Yeah.
So if you're a believer and you start getting that cross on your back, like what you want to do is be like, why did you do this to me, God? I could have things way easier right now if I wasn't here to take the expedient little shortcut, not have this problem anymore. And literally the only reason I'm dragging this daggone thing around is because of personal loyalty to you. That's what grace is like.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not
Phlebas,
good feeling on a Sunday morning.
Phlebas is trying to, and I would say failing, defend Protestant ideas of like it's faith, not works righteousness, stuff like that. Look, there's a reason why I don't think any other religion, like I don't think I know Judaism, I know Islam doesn't have this idea that the way you prove you have faith in God is by not actually doing any of the things that he commands and not hoping to, like, you turn towards God. You are given a capacity by God, Deuteronomy 30, to turn towards God. And it's a process of sanctification. It is not something, the fact that you can turn towards God, the fact that you even exist comes from God. So it's not a denial of the sovereignty of God. It is an affirmation of the desire of God that he wants us to desire him. And so there is an awakening, an arousal from below, which elicits an arousal of God's kindness and goodness towards us. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with you initiating and with you wanting to be closer to God. There's a lot right with that. And so anytime I hear people like making this works righteousness argument, it just seems very perverse to me. And with that, we kind of have to go because we have a board meeting where we're going to hopefully do works righteousness. We have a charity where we're going to do good things because that's what God wants.
Very good. Are you going to continue broadcasting on this on your channel, or
about to remove that? So
okay, I'm going to post the link to this video for those who would want to continue to stay. It should be in the chat right now. You should be able to see it, hopefully at all destinations. I'm not sure I can post that to yours.
Not Twitter. You should be able to see it on the thing on my YouTube though. Let me just redo it just in case.
Yeah. In case anybody just wants to keep the thing going and they don't know how to spell my last name. There we go. Now I see it. Should be there. So, you guys do good, be humble, stay hungry.
Will do. At least the last part.
All righty.
You know, I think that, like, at least for the way that I work all this stuff out, most clearly is shockingly, oh, hi, Father. Oh. Whoa,
Hello.
I'm so confused. So many things are happening. Wow.
It's okay.
I feel like I was in a room having a conversation with people, and then several of them just like apparated and disapparated, and now it's a completely new mix of people. This is wild.
It is. It is.
Oh, the internet is so disorienting.
It can be.
Hello, Emma. How are you?
Hello. I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right. Hanging out. Well, my friend's actually at a dress rehearsal for a play, but I'll see him tonight. I'm drinking his beer right now, though. So.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I just noticed you're in a new spot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a good place to be, drinking someone else's beer.
Hey, Emma.
I was just going to bring up Psalm 37, which says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And that's the answer to the conundrum in my mind, which is, if you desire the right thing, you'll get it. That's how you get your desires, by wanting the right thing.
And it's hard. It's hard to want the right thing because you've got bad habits turning you away. But Mark's here, and he's going to tell us all how to want the right things.
Right. But if only that were possible. I don't think so. I apparently did okay in the comments though, so that was good.
I just joined in time to miss the problem you were solving, but I do believe you said you solved it. So
Yeah. Honestly, it's like there's something about being raised in a materialist culture which makes the grace of God seem like a foreign intrusion.
Wait, yeah.
It should actually literally be the most natural thing in the world because it comes from the author of everything.
Yeah.
Do you think it's materialism?
I think so, right?
Grace being an intrusion is only as old as that?
Materialism's really old. Just the foothold of materialism is, we'll say in recent times, is due to a bunch of converging factors. But materialist thought is very old. I mean, pagans are materialists.
Oh, that's true.
Like Thales, everything is water, right?
Yeah.
Well, Mark, are you referring to the fact that like a lot of the pagan gods are natural gods and not supernatural gods? Because like that's a point that's well worth making, right? That they're all part of the system.
Yeah, but not only that, Ted. I mean, even if you couldn't, let's suppose you had to take that off the table for whatever weird reason. I mean, it's mostly correct, right? It's not 100%, but it's real close to 100%, right? The way that you used the gods.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's already the problem, right? They were utilitarian gods based on what they could do materially, for the most part, not entirely.
I guess I didn't
a lot
think
of paganism is, a lot of paganism is about the material, right? Because the gods are based on material for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part. And then, and even when they're not, the way you see them is only through the material interaction. Whereas I would say in, we'll call it good, healthy Christian thought, just so I don't end up railing against every Protestant ever. The idea is that things like love and grace, or agapic love and grace, manifest, and they don't have material effect. It's not that the material effect isn't also attributable to those things. It's that grace and agapic love manifest
in immaterial ways. Oh.
Well, and you right, but we talk about it as though they're ethereal because they are, right? So,
well, yeah, but then I mean, so much of what they're trying to, it seems like the West was trying to do with the sort of the hylomorphic view of reality, pulling from Aristotle, was an attempt to get rid of that total distinction, right, Father? Like you were saying, the difference between the difference between like saying as though your soul was something that could be liberated separately or something like that, right? The liberation theology distinction, right? It's that old demon materialism again creeping in, where it's like, and I think, but reading like from what I see of Aquinas and Aristotle, it's like you can't. Just a second, I've got a child situation. You guys keep talking.
All righty, Aquinas and Aristotle. You can't separate the spirit from the matter. I hope that's where he was going with that. Okay, good, very good. But you should attend to your children, though. Hopefully, there are no messes. He's, honestly, every single one of his ancestors up to this point has managed to raise children successfully. So he's got good odds going for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I, your point, Father Eric, about growing up in materialism or growing up in the naturalist, physicalist frame, right? That's the part, Emma, that I would say that's why it seems different, right? Because, well, now it's like the scientists won't even use the word soul. They're like, we're not going to use the word soul. We're going to invent a new term. We're going to call it consciousness. And it's like, really? That's your move? Because you don't want to use the word soul? And then when they're pressed, they're like, well, we can't define consciousness. We'll go back to nous. That's what we'll do. We'll just use the ancient Greek terms. And it's like, really? Like, I see what you're doing. Like, I get it. Right. And
I mean,
consciousness
even
comes from Cudworth, right? And nobody knows who Cudworth is. Nobody.
So
even psychology, the whole field is the study of the soul.
Right. Well, it attempts
God-
An
not
attempt
to
at
be.
it.
God bless
Yeah.
you, Emma. I've been making that etymological point so many times, and I'm just like, everyone's like, I don't get it. What's this thing with psychology? I'm like, it's literally soulology. It's soulology.
It is.
Like, this is what.
but denies that that's what it's doing at the same time.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah. And
That's why
well,
you
there's
need
no-
consciousness.
Yeah. Which, again, I know that there's a lot of Harari hate out here, but one of Harari's wonderful moments of honesty is when he summarized the entire field of the study of consciousness, which was, we know nothing.
Okay. Harari said one true thing.
I know. I'm sorry. I'll
No. I started off
I
last
don't
week's
even
stream
know
by
who
saying
it
that
is, so.
Ibram X. Kendi said one true thing. So you're allowed to do that.
Can I throw out something that I think it's interesting in relation to this whole mechanistic stuff and grace and soul material stuff, is that me and Corey, I know a number of you guys know Corey, just went on a pilgrimage in eastern Oklahoma this weekend.
Oh,
nice.
Yes, we
Super
walked
jealous.
35 miles in 2 days with about 2,300 pilgrims.
wow.
It was 23 miles on the first day. I about died. It was brutal. And
All that sitting in the earth mover hasn't prepared you for that, huh?
no, see, I said this year I'm gonna train for it. I'm gonna get all this time in walking, and then I got completely slammed to work. And it turns out that sitting in an excavator and walking use different muscle groups. Who knew? So I did a lot. It was very penitential for me. But it was a really wonderful experience, and all sorts of interesting things. And from this direction of analysis, some very interesting things in terms of like the way that, say, the action of walking down a dirt road can be transformed into something extraordinarily powerful because of the way that it's taking place and like what it means. But things that I learned: bagpipes, horns, and a wind flapping in the breeze are just like they just stir the human soul. It doesn't matter how dead you are inside; they just do something to you. And the moment of the last like mile and a half, you're walking in on the Abbey grounds, and you walk in silence. So there's just the sound of the pilgrims' feet on the gravel, and then you go down this draw, and you start coming up, and there's a Catholic priest and 3 young men all playing bagpipes. And which, again, bagpipes get a bad rap. If you're out walking and there's good bagpipe players and you're marching to it, it's like no wonder men went to die listening to bagpipes. Like, it does something to you. And as we walk past the bagpipes, like out from like underneath this like mournful wailing of the bagpipes comes the tolling of the monastery church bells. Just boom, boom, boom. It's like, man, I walked 30 miles for that again.
Yeah. And so the whole point of a pilgrimage isn't just to walk somewhere, but is to find transformation in that.
That's exactly right.
So if you've got anything that's, YouTube level insights, changes, resolutions, we'd be happy to hear it. And if it's a little tender yet, be at peace.
Yeah. Well, so this is the second year that I've walked that pilgrimage. And I mean, it's the kind of thing you could. The first thing that I did last year when I came back was went and talked to a priest and got our chapter organized. So, I mean, it was clearly a good. It was a good thing that time. There's a couple of things. One is it actualizes. You get to see what things that we tend to talk about in abstract terms actually look like, in like a really good way. And so one example of this is this guy that I met, the chapter that I walked with. He had a couple of young children with him, and the his boys were, I don't know, 10 or 11, and then maybe like 7, and 2 of them were, and they started having foot problems and they couldn't walk anymore, but they desperately wanted to finish the pilgrimage. So he already had his 2-year-old in a chest harness, and then he got his 10-year-old and put him in the fireman's carry. And this is after he's walked 33 miles over the last 2 days. And I'm walking next to him into the Abbey for the last mile and a half, and he's got a baby strapped to his chest and his kid in the fireman carry. And we're walking to go to the Pontifical High Mass at the end of this. And I was like, wow, there's fatherhood. Like, I'm walking next to fatherhood. Like, that is it. He's like, that was really wonderful. There's just a lot of blessing in terms of finding out a lot of truth about the relationship between your will and your desires. Like, for instance, in the right circumstances, you generally have a lot more capacity to exercise your will than you think. You find that out usually I find that out in like miles 19 through 23. Finding out there's a lot there in terms of like finding out how much you desire the thing that you're after. And I remember, especially again last year, it was a little more clearly than this year, but I remember like the end of that first day, which was just terrible, thinking, if I could see our Lord standing there visibly waiting for me at the end of the walk, I would walk until my legs were bleeding, until my feet were bleeding and my shoes were gone, and I was walking on bone. And intellectually, I believe that like he's waiting for me at the end of my life, but that's actually there. So like, let's go ahead and try this. Like, let's do a dry run today, next 3 miles. Let's see if we can do it. And yeah, it's amazing. It's just it. And related to that is the whole underlying thing about the pilgrimage, which is what you were saying, Father, that it's not just about getting to the end of it. There's this wonderful thing where, it's a big group of people, you're out in the wild-ish. So, like, stuff is not always the way you want it to be. And it's not even about, like, I can get over it. But when you're on a pilgrimage, my thought continually is, like, this is why I'm here. Like, I'm actually here to be inconvenienced. Like, I chose to do this so that I would be inconvenienced. And what happens when you do that is that all of a sudden this thing that was going to, like, tear away at you actually becomes a source of life. And you're like, I'm thankful. Now I'm thankful that whatever of the countless things, the kids in the tent next to me are talking a whole bunch, that we're 1,500 people back, and so there's never seats for us, and we can't hear the mass being offered. And I know that I'm not going to get in the church at the end and get to see the incredible Pontifical High Mass and hear the choir, except through speakers, etc. It's like 363 days out of the year, I'd be all up and trying to bust ahead of people and walk as fast as I can and all of this. But for 2 days out of the year, that inconvenience actually becomes a source of like joy and gratitude in my life. And then of course the thought is like, well, is there any real reason that I couldn't approach all of my life like that? And the answer is no, there's not. It's just that I can't see things properly. Because if I could see things properly, then everything would have the capacity to be like that. And obviously, like, forever, the saints have spoken about our lives as a pilgrimage, right? Our whole life is a pilgrimage, and we pray that in the Hail Holy Queen prayer, and after this, our exile, right? It's like we should see ourselves as pilgrims all the time. So that's some of the stuff. Yeah. But for Catholics out there, you should. Or non-Catholics, frankly, just come on. It's an incredible experience. It's actually, there was a young man at Chino who I told about the Three Hearts pilgrimage, and we didn't connect anymore, like over the podcast or email or phone or anything. And I was waiting on the bus from where I dropped my car off after I dropped my passengers off at the start. I drove to the Abbey where it ends to drop my car off, and they shuttle us over, and I'm waiting for the bus, and here he walks up to me. We didn't even remember each other's names. He's like, I'm here. I said, what do you mean you're here? He's like, you told me I had to come. So I drove from Arizona all night. I'm here. Wow. Great.
Nice.
So.
Do you remember his name now?
Yes, I do. I don't know how much of a web presence he wants to have, so I'm not going to tell you what his name was, but I'm not going to forget his name. Good young man. I was really proud of him.
Did you catch up with him to find out how it went? Or?
Yeah, I didn't see him at the very end, but we ran into each other several times. You know, you're all walking together, and you take breaks together, and I ran into him several times, and he was limping more every time, but as were we all, but he was never not beaming. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It was really cool. So we had at least 3 Chino people on that pilgrimage, which I thought was
wow.
I was pretty happy about how good we did there.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, Mark, you're the only person on this screen who
Didn't camp at Chino.
didn't camp at Chino.
I wouldn't have camped. Believe me. No camping, no hostels, no, all done. Done all that. I'm good. Never again.
Oh man.
I did a hostel once. I found out what it was all about. The best part of it never manifested, and I'm like, yeah, I could do without this. But I couldn't make it out to Chino, but that's okay. I'm okay with missing Chino.
Are you coming to Arkansas?
I'm working on it. It's not looking good, but we'll see. We'll see what I can do.
See.
I haven't given up hope. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Emma, you have to pray. You pick a saint that's going to get Mark there, all right?
There we go.
I'll work on it.
Everybody pick a saint.
Go for Saint Rock, actually. He's underappreciated.
That's a real thing.
I don't know who that is.
Rock?
ROC.
Really?
ROC.
Like the giant elephant eating bird.
Yeah.
I don't
know.
know.
I'm sorry. The what? There's a what?
There's
Giant
a giant.
elephant.
How do you not know about the rock? It's a mythological bird out of Persia that's so big that it eats elephants.
And it's also.
I stop before I
What?
get to Persia.
No.
I stop at Greece.
I'm so disappointed right now.
He makes
I'm
stuff
not
up.
usually disappointed in people, but you can look it up. The Rock.
I will look it up. But I need you to understand that I thought you meant it was real.
Oh no!
That was terrifying. That was a terrifying
real.
minute.
Depends how you define real.
Okay, presently existing, like in material reality.
It is not physically manifest
materialist.
in reality.
Presently, physically manifest in some part of the world.
I'm on Emma's side with this one. You want to know if that thing's out there, right? Like that's just a practical matter right there.
Yeah.
I will say there are giant birds that eat elephants, but they just eat them like bite at a time, and we call them vultures.
Yeah.
Versus the rock, which eats them one bite at a time, like that. Different than the vultures.
Yeah. Are vultures really giant? I feel like when you're comparing them to a bird that eats elephants in one bite, giant might be flexible.
No, but like the old world vultures are sufficiently large in their physical manifestation for me to call them large, because you don't want to mess with them. That's in my book, like a bird is large if you don't want to tangle with it. So like,
okay.
Geese are large. Geese weigh less than me. I still don't want to fight a goose. You know, by the time you get to a cassowary, it's like, nah, I don't want to get killed. They're one of the most deadly wild animals, really. Big flightless bird in Australia, and they'll mess you up. This is what I've got my degree in biology for, if you're wondering, to know about which birds can kill you.
Yeah. So the rock can carry them away, I guess, but it's not big enough to eat them in one bite. But I didn't. It's in Sinbad, the sailor, and it's in 1001 Nights. I must have forgotten about it because I know those stories, and Or maybe it has another name, right?
See, that's what it is, Ted. I've never actually gotten around to reading 1001 Nights, and it's one of my deepest shames.
Oh yeah,
I mean, don't worry about all that Oriental nonsense.
You gotta kick her off the stream, Father Eric. There's no other way. We can't.
Nah. But Mark, this is your guy right here. It's a patron saint of dogs, invalids, falsely accused people, bachelors, and several other things.
Several other things.
Nice.
So we're all going to pray to Saint Rock that Mark will make it to the Arkansas conference.
Amazing. It's on.
And in Italian, it's just spelled with the C, but when you put it into English, we get the in there.
Oh. He's one of the Italian saints. Okay.
Mm-hmm. St. Peterson. In America, it's called the Thunderbird. Yeah, there's lots of giant birds in floating around all over the world. It just makes sense. You're like, I don't know. You see some storms, and you're like, yeah, there's giant things that will swoop out of the sky and kill me. So
yeah, the Thunderbird mythology is cool. Actually, the Native American Thunderbird mythology is like fascinating stuff.
I don't really know anything. I just know that it was around. I don't know anything about what was going on there.
They come from the south. They usually come in front of storms, and they're enormous, and they just swoop down and take people, or livestock or whatever. Extremely rare, but well known. It's a strange sort of a thing.
There's all sorts of weird things like that. There's one of my favorites is when I think it's Milton, where he compares some, like in a metaphor, like when you're describing something extraordinary, you have the extraordinary thing and you compare to the thing everyone knows, the reader's going to know about. And so he's making a description of something, either a storm or angels battling or something. He's like the airy nights. And I was like, what is he talking about with the airy nights? And I looked it up, and apparently there's a long time in Europe where like people looked up and occasionally saw these knights doing battle in the sky. It's just a thing that was going on back then. Apparently, there was knights up in the sky doing battle.
Riders in the sky.
Man, Eric, I want to go to another match at you in town.
You want to go to another mass with me?
Yeah, the you in tone, like a sung mass.
Oh yeah. We had a sung mass today. I did my thing,
Yeah.
Did my
That's
thing.
lovely.
Sing with the voice I've been given. So.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's a blessing when a priest got a good voice. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Brings out another level to things. So.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I can come up with other stuff to tell people.
I guess we have to start talking about Dante now. If there's a pause of more than 10 seconds.
It's time for Dante.
I'm contractually obligated to mention Dante.
Well, somebody missed the Dante book club, apparently, because my stream showed me that somebody wasn't there for that whole thing.
I know, because I was on pilgrimage, which is...
Oh, is that
really
why you missed it?
Yeah, because it's really appropriate. If you're going to miss Dante for any reason, it's being an actual pilgrim. That's like
absolutely.
To miss.
I'll allow it.
They did it without you, and I was a little shocked.
Well, look, they're only getting through one canto a week, which it means it's going to take them over 2 years.
Years to do this thing. I
know.
So,
that's the sort of thing where it's like, you keep on going. We can't afford that many delays here.
Nope, that's exactly right. So, and the other thing is that it's so it's the whole thing's tied together that if I miss any beats that I wanted to bring up, it's like you can always bring them up.
They'll come up again.
Yeah, the conference is basically in my backyard.
So look down below at the description of the video. There should be a link in the description that's going to tell you how to come listen to me and Ted and Dr. Jim talk about all of the things that you've ever wanted to hear about.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it manifests itself as a grace from God and you need it and you don't know you need it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I told Grim about the conference.
I think evil.
Thanks, Emma. And to be even more specific,
I told Grim about the conference more than 2 days ago.
If you come on Thursday for paintball, the plan right now is that you will come actually to my literal yard and have a bonfire and a meal after that. So,
Question. If you're driving
Emma.
8 hours that day and you can't make it to paintball, but you might get there in time for the bonfire. If you're driving 8 hours that day and you can't make it to paintball, but you might get there in time for the bonfire.
Sorry. I'm trying to
enough-
find your info, but it's not on StreamYard, so.
Important enough to ask twice. Emma, if you're making that kind of a pilgrimage to this, yes, you're welcome. Just shoot me an email or a Discord message so that I remember.
Okay.
But yeah, you're absolutely
Will
welcome.
do.
So, yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I don't think we'll make it in time for paintball because that's a long drive.
Asking for
No,
a friend,
probably
she
not.
says.
Yeah, wow. Get Grim out here. Grim would be an awesome contribution to him. You know, we're in like a little Baptist camp, so we'll have to drive him out so he can, you know,
We're gonna dunk him.
smoke a cigarette.
So, and by we, I mean somebody else, because if I dunk somebody, they're automatically Catholic.
It's all
I
work.
can't do a non-Catholic baptism. It's impossible.
It's automatic? Oh, wow. I didn't know
No,
that.
I'm a Catholic minister. Like, what do you think is going to happen? I dunk you. You're incorporated into the Catholic Church. You are now bound to observe all the Catholic laws, practices, and customs.
Well, wait a minute. But what if you're a pacifist? Then baptism doesn't work because you don't believe
No,
in war.
no,
So you can't be in the war if you're not. You can't. Doesn't make any sense.
God loves pacifists, even.
Yeah, he just won't let them in the battle
Oh.
because they don't fight. So they're
Also,
can't
I
be in
don't
the club.
think Grizz is a pacifist.
No, Mark's mad about pacifism right now. This is going to come up every day for the next month or so.
Yeah. I
No,
mean,
this
I
is
didn't realize he
every
was
day of
that
my
mad,
life.
but
This is not the next month. This is every day I have ever lived. Sorry. It's
Oh,
been a
okay.
perpetual
I haven't
problem.
noticed it until.
okay, well, it
until
doesn't
last
come up
week.
every time.
Were you one of those born angry children?
Oh no, angry's for the weak people. Anger's for the people who can't take it. I don't have anger. I have rage. You can get angry.
Oh, very
You know
different.
nothing.
Very different.
Yours
Very
is more
different.
elite. It's got class, apparently.
Anger.
Flev is married an Anabaptist. Uh-oh. I will tell you that if we hadn't become Catholic, I feel like there's like deep down inside, I have a serious connection to my soul with the Amish. So, you know, I don't know about their theology, but the way that they're living, I've got some
Hey,
respect.
they're Catholic Amish.
I know.
There
I
are a
was at
couple Catholic
conference-
Amish communities out there in the world.
What?
What?
Catholic Amish?
Yeah, they decided to convert to Catholicism, but because they decided it was the true religion, but they liked their way of life, so they just kept
Oh,
it.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
we'll send a priest out there. Sure.
Any Catholic can live the way the Amish live. Like there's nothing.
In
They
fact,
don't have
most
a
of them
trademark.
should. Most
Yeah.
of them should. It's just really hard. You
Little
know?
house on the
It
prairie,
is.
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, that was
I was at a conference. I was at a small conference,
It's
and
hard
there was
reading
a guy
those
there
books.
who was a Catholic. He was Catholic. He was a Catholic Amish, and he started a question. He was a convert to being a Catholic Amish, and he started a question to one of the speakers saying, "Having taken up the way of the horse," and then something, 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 and I was like, I don't know what the rest of this question is, but it's going to be good.
the way
should
of
just be a
the
life-
horse.
The way of the horse. Yeah, I'm guessing someone gave him a ride to the conference because otherwise, you know, it would have been pretty hard to get there. But
There's
You take a horse.
nowhere to graze the horses in town.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Fort
Well,
Scott,
that's-
Kansas isn't.
That's only
Doesn't have
true in
stables
some
anymore.
towns. You can graze horses on Boston Common. Just saying.
That's amazing. The elites
What's
don't want you to know, but you can graze your horse there. I do it all the time.
Well, no, I don't. But there are horses. I think they still, last time I was in Boston, they still had the police on horses. And when they have events in Boston Common, they usually bring out the horses. So, and the police do police work from the horses for real. So
It gives you a
They
height
have nowhere
advantage.
to tie up the
Yes.
wagon.
People on horses are intimidating. You know, when we were out on the pilgrimage, because it's all rural Oklahoma. You know, we walked past several places, little hobby farms where they had horses, And then they got kind of spooked by the pilgrims. And you just like, we just forget this in the modern world, but you see like a good, healthy, well-groomed horse running in a field, and it's like, I have seen a wonder.
Yeah.
That's why in biblical times the horses were the sign of earthly power. You know, that the Lord had to say, "Put no trust in the chariots of Egypt."
Yeah. Yeah.
Remind them over and over again. That's not where the real power is, because I mean, you look at it, it's like, oh boy, that's power right there. That is speed. That is strength. That is grace. It is being a few feet up on the ground so you could just hack at people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's one battle in the Andes where it was like 15 Spaniards on horses with metal armor overcame an army of 10,000.
Oh man.
Wow.
It's like you need metal, and you need horses, and then you're good to go.
The Spanish can go anywhere in South America without a large contingent of unhappy, rebellious natives.
I know, but this was early on enough that they hadn't set up any of those alliances. This is really early on the conquest of the Incan Empire.
Yeah, but when they landed, they immediately had followers because they landed. So it's a little, that history is a little wonky just because of what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, you hear so many contradictory things, but this is what I got from my lit of the Spanish conquest.
Well, I mean, but there's also no question about it. Like, man, if you're on a horse and they're not, you ain't winning. Like, it's some multiple to one for sure. Well, and if you don't know how to take down a horse, because you have to do it in a specific way, you're kind of screwed.
You guys are making me think now, because we've got a lot of Amish or Mennonites. I'm not sure which. Probably Mennonites have moved to northern Ontario, so just north of Superior. And my son's in Timmins, about a few hours north of there, and he was talking about how every time you go up the highway, you want to try and not go up it in the dark because of moose. And I'm thinking, what do the Amish do?
They don't bother the moose. They don't spook them. I mean, moose aren't going to hurt you unless you hit them with a car.
Okay, so Sandy, I've actually heard why moose are so bad for cars. Has anyone else heard this? That they're so tall that when you clip the legs, they just go right through the windshield.
Yep, they fall on the car. That's correct. That's exactly what happens.
It's bad news.
But doesn't God say something like to Job, like consider the horse? And part of his rebuttal to Job is he like, consider the horse. Like, look at it. This is why you should understand that I'm mighty.
Behold the horse, and therefore I exist, and am just and good.
I don't remember anything about a horse. I remember Leviathan, but
That'll be something for
I need to double check that, but I somewhere in the last 4 chapters. There's also a great line from Richard Wilbur's poem "Lying," where he talks about a horse's neck clothed in its usual thunder. Which
nice.
Its usual thunder. Oh, that's a good line. I really should read more poetry.
Yes. November, Arkansas, come. I'll actually read. I'm going to read what Richard Wilbur's lying of the. If you come and you have a desire, we're going to have some times where people can just read or recite poetry. Like if you're cool enough to have memorized it, unlike me, then you can just recite it or you can read it. And there should be a lot of just enjoyment of cool stuff that people dug up and love. And so that's one of the ones that I'm planning on reading.
Are you guys taping
by Richard Wilbur.
Are you going to record any of this?
We're going to record the talks. Yeah.
Yay. I don't think I can get more time off work.
I know,
how sad.
I know.
One day I will be retired when I'm like 90. I'll have so much free time.
Oh man. It was a delight meeting you and Gino and Sandy. It was really fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting you too. Yeah. And Emma camping with me.
Yes.
Not directing that at anybody in particular.
You know, it's good that you guys had each other there. Or should I say you gals had each other there?
Yeah, it was helpful.
It was that was a very it felt a little fratty sometimes.
Seriously?
It did to me. That's what I noticed. Like, oh man, there's a lot of beer cans just kind of strewn around everywhere. You know, like I'm not against beer, right? But it's like, you know,
But you are against stop picking up your crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some truth to that.
We always had all the kids over to our house because, you know, I don't know why, but so I'm like, yeah, whatever. It was fun.
Consider the horse, Job. Did you make him? No, you didn't. I made the horse. Therefore, your argument is invalid. That is the best possible logic right there. I made horses.
Oh my
What did
goodness.
you make? Nothing. You made nothing.
Not a horse.
Not one horse did you make, I say.
Oh man.
Yeah, it'd be good to see people actually reciting. I think I have. Well, no, I only have one poem memorized. It's mine, of course. And then I had the tiger memorized for a while, but that comes and goes, so can't do it reliably anymore.
I have one poem half memorized that I think I will try to get back up to scratch before the conference.
Well, so Spencer Clavin did this little thing in DC where it was like you memorize 4 lines at a time.
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was probably a good technique. I couldn't do it.
I had a professor who would make us do that for every class.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I could probably get those back too, actually, with a little effort. I have a translation.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm hoping that you show up with your own translation of the Song of Roland or something.
I have a translation of a Horace ode that I worked on a while ago that I was thinking about cleaning up and reading. I wouldn't be able to memorize it, but I wasn't sure if that was pretentious. I could also do the first few lines of the Aeneid in Latin with a little work.
Nice.
That would be really cool.
Huh?
I now said all of this in public.
Give a little bit of taste. Yeah, you'll be able to give us a little taste of that. That'd be fantastic.
Do it.
Yeah.
I have to work on the meter, but I think I could get it there pretty easily. I taught 10 children it this summer, so.
That's wonderful.
Nice.
I think that Phoebus should go to your conference.
I definitely think so too. He can hash it out with me in person. Too.
Then I can finally see what it looks like.
I know.
You can see what he looks like.
Well, he's just got the P, right? You know.
He doesn't have any sort of picture.
He's like, I don't know.
It looks like a green circle with a P on it.
You haven't seen him talking on YouTube? Once?
I have. I don't remember. So.
Has he been on?
Maybe.
Okay. Man, if Jacob's got a 5-hour stream, I'm not watching that.
Richard's been on, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You could probably use TLC and just search for Phoebus and find the timestamp.
You mean the Peterson sphere?
Peterson.
No. The this-little-corner.com.
No.
Search engine.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I know. Okay, sorry.
We just call it.
But I'm talking about the search engine.
I know what you're talking about. Talking about the search engine, which covers Peterson sphere channels, but not mine.
Yeah.
It does. How rude. We should get you added.
You know what is it? Is it the guy with the bear profile picture who runs that?
Is it Gregory? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. There's a very useful search engine there that pulls the transcripts of Peterson's sphere videos.
Incredibly helpful, actually.
So if you wanted to find Ted talking about the bear attack, or Ted talking about the ladder to heaven in the children's books, or Ted talking about Dante, which will overload it. You can't find it now because my channel's
too many results.
Yeah, let it be resolved. Mine should be added. Jordan Peterson.
I feel like Grim
Oh, yeah,
Grizz
you
would
gotta
know.
put that up.
Um,
That was good.
That's things like that are like cool, but also make me completely horrified at like the future surveillance state that's going to be brought in by large language models and that kind of thing in the next year. I'm just like, wow, if you can do that to all the videos and the Peterson Sphere search engine thing, it's like, just imagine if you do that to the entire internet and everything can be found always forever.
Well, that's their goal. But
You
Ted,
don't.
you
Of
gotta
course it is.
you gotta go on the Mark of Wisdom Discord server and see what I did with the local AI that just has my stuff in it. Not all of it. I'm just experimenting. Quite interesting. It's I was like, wow, wasn't I mean I knew I could get better results than the generics for lots of computer reasons that aren't interesting. But
So what Mark
Interesting.
did is that he fed a bunch of his own notes into a large language model and asked it some questions, and lo and behold, it reflected his answers back to him, and he was pleased.
No, that's not fair. It's running locally. None of it was sent anywhere. It's all here, physically at my house, right? And it actually gave better answers than I'm able to articulate. And I was like, well, that's pretty damn good. So, but I mean, legit.
Now.
It's not. It doesn't do that with everything. Like I've already tested, it's only got about a 50% hit rate. But man, when it hits, it's actually. I was like, well, that's way more concise than me. That's pretty good.
Yeah. We can just retire now into like the spirit of Mark and just bounce around in this LLM for the rest of forever. Mark, do you feel like you've created some sort of like mathematical crystal and trapped your spirit in it, and now you're like just a shell of a body walking around, and Mark is now embedded in an LLM and some server bank?
Because it only has a 50% hit rate, and my hit rate is not that low.
Literally, all of you are 100% at being yourselves.
No, not even close.
Oh, Father, I don't know about that.
I'd settle. I'd settle for 85, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can make that.
Aren't I like annihilating myself in some sense when I'm sinning? Like there's like less of me.
Yeah, but
me when I'm sinning.
You know whose help you didn't have with that. You didn't have God's help with that.
This is true. Yeah.
How about when you have God's help, you are 100% yourself?
This is true.
Yeah.
Yes. That's always will I do whenever you leave me, Lord.
Say true selves.
There's no such thing as why do you just tacking words together to make it sound different?
Mark, you're so bitter about something.
No, I mean it's ridiculous. Well, let's just put meta in front of everything so that we know it's not the same thing as the thing before, but we're not actually saying anything. Like what would be the difference between your true self and your untrue self? Then it's not a self anymore. Like that doesn't work in the language, right? It runs into a problem in the language.
I don't know. I mean, true selves is like a true self. I don't know what a true self. I mean, I think what people mean by that is the person that they wish. Sure. Well, no, I feel like I could come up with some definitions. The problem is that I think it's a term that's just like so nebulous, and people mean all kinds of things. People generally, by the true self, they mean what I really want. And if I was going to talk about true self, I would mean someone as they are transfigured alive in God.
Why would it be what you want? Why that particular word?
Because we're individualist, materialist scumbags. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the scumbag part, but I mean, right? Sandy, when someone's like, that wasn't like my true self. Like I wasn't able to express my true self. What they meant is I didn't like do all the things that came to my mind or to my gut to do. That's what people mean when they say like, oh, I wasn't really being my true self. It means that they generally means that they had good social inhibition. That's
well, they weren't. But what they should be saying is they weren't being true to themselves. And we often mix up true and truth. And true.
So here's an interesting thing that happened today. We were, well, anyways, I went to church, and my one of the ladies there made a comment that she said, I seem more calm, more certain than even when she first met me, which would be a number of years ago. And that, more than what I would want, to me reflects what I would think would be myself. If I'm visibly being just more calm, more there, more whatever word people mean when they say centered or something, like just simply like not frazzled against whatever I'm not frazzled against anything. That to me is so, when you say want, I'm like, but the word want, it indicates
you can want all sorts of things.
When we do the, it's Psalm 23, I shall not want. What does that even mean? It means, I'm not going to be without, I'm not lacking anything.
I think it's placing trust higher than anything else. It's trust and faith above anything else.
I like that, Sandy. I mean, that just like that twist of the word want to lack, not to desire, but to lack is a nice twist. When you were saying that, Sandy, I was thinking about, I think it's St. Augustine's definition of peace as the tranquility of order. And if you're going to, what's amazing is all this stuff about St. Augustine that I bring up, and I've never read Confessions, so there you go.
Really? Oh, wow.
I know.
My ex had a copy of that book and actually read it. He's dyslexic. It took him forever. Yeah, are you dyslexic or something, aren't you? So you take a long time to read too, don't you?
No, I take a long time to spell.
You're dyslexic.
Yeah, Mark's dyslexic. I can't spell, so it would take me forever. I regularly encounter. I think like 3 words is less. What'd you say?
I can't spell either. The dyslexia is just the first problem.
At any rate, Dr. Russ Hintinger's got some wonderful lectures out in podcast land on the Confessions, but the tranquility of order, peace is the tranquility of order. There's some notion about like coming to peace, like being at peace, not in the sense of like the absence of action or something like that, but right, what you're saying, Sandy, you have this intuition that the degree to which you're at peace is the degree to which like you're what you're supposed to be. There's a relationship there, and I mean, an appropriate definition of your true self is what you're supposed to be, right? Which is to say that you're perfect, right? You're complete. You've reached what you're supposed to be. I guess, I mean, if you want a useful definition of your true self, it'd probably be that. But I would just call that being a saint. So
a lot of what you guys are saying interesting about being true to yourself, because as a writer you're supposed to find your voice, and it's this nebulous thing of like it's like how a musician or a band will have their sound. The writer's supposed to figure out what their voice is and write from that. And I'm like still figuring that out myself. And basically, go ahead.
Yeah, the problem with that sort of thing is that it's not something you can actually do according to your own conscious intentionality.
Right.
Right. It's more like you've got to just get yourself into the right place and let the whatever it is, the muses will say, come down on you, and kind of getting out of the way of that, rather than it being something that you produce.
Yeah.
But I have those exercises where you get, like a writing prompt and you just simply put pen on page and you just don't even think about it. You just keep going.
I've kind of learned that when I got feedback that I had figured out what my voice was doing this conversational, like I'm speaking thing. So I speak as I write, but I make everything grammarly, like it's written, but it sounds like it's like how we're talking with each other right now, that seems to be my voice. It might change in 15, 20 years. I have no idea. I think it's more about being authentic and just being true to yourself. That's why I was kind of like, ooh, yes.
So one thing I've thought about, so let's say we all go to heaven right? And this is a wrong way to think about this exercise. But let's say we all go to heaven, and am I myself at 80 when I go to heaven, or am I myself at 5 or 10 or 12? And so the way I've started thinking about what you're describing, Valerie, is, so Christ says, I am the way and the truth and the life. And none of those is a destination, and none of those it's all a process. So it's like to the extent that you're walking with Christ, you're following yourself. And to the extent that you're not. And so it's not even whether or not you're at the destination. It's are you at the right place in the journey at the present time? That's at least how I think about it.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. Yeah. 'Cause I'm not who I was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I sort of am, but I kind of not. It's like my family knows that it's me, not just by how I look and that I grew up with them and everything, but I've kind of changed over time. That's really perceptive of you. Thank you, Neil.
Because I think this was Chad and PVK. Obviously, I've talked about this a lot. Sorry, I've lurked for a long time. This is the first time I'm showing myself. But
welcome on,
anyway,
Neil. Good to have you.
Thank you. But they talk about so I remember PVK talking about, it was either Chad talking or PVK talking about Chad's experience and through everything he's been through. And the question and the question I always have when I think of something like that is like, would I prefer not to have experienced the depths of my own sin, let's say, right? And I can't say no. That I'm not convinced that it would be better for me, for anybody else even. And that's a horrifying thought, right? Because I hurt other people. Right. But I'm still not convinced that it would have been better to avoid it. It's almost like there's a line that says God writes straight with crooked lines. You ever hear that? Something like that. But we don't have that power. That is not our capability.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's been my own experience. And so the things that I personally have gone through, hard and soft, have I would say I can't regret them because they brought me to where I am now.
Yeah.
That I think that's a sign, when you're able to say that, when you've got that peace, that's a sign that you're. But it sounds like you're a Christian. Sounds like you've been redeemed, saved, working on it.
Much to my surprise, I am practicing Roman Catholic for 5 years now, and I guess 5 years. Yeah, and if you told me I'm a classic corner story. Like I'm the Sam Harris guy that found JP, and then I stumbled upon PVK in the early days, and it was this guy with the strange beard who looked like God from Michelangelo, and I was like, I'm not going to listen to this. But then I came back to PVK over time. I've listened to a lot, so yeah.
And that's the thing is that when your stance and your alignment towards God changes the way that you look at your past, right? Because if there's no redemption in the world, if there's no possibility of forgiveness and God making right what had once gone wrong, then your sins are just absolutely going to crush you, right? It's just like I did these horrible things, or even if they weren't horrible, they made me horrible, But once you've got the sense that no, it's actually not 100% up to you, but that there's someone above who can bring goodness out of evil, then even though you can look at it and on one, and you get the paradox there, and St. Paul wrestles with this. I think it's in like chapter 6 in the letter of the Romans, where he says, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. Well, does that mean we should sin? No. Don't.
Yeah.
But just know that where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, because you get that kind of paradox there, where if you hadn't sinned and experienced your own wretchedness, then you wouldn't have realized that you needed to submit humbly to God and ask for his forgiveness.
I think I remember Jordan Peterson saying something along the lines of, if you know that what you're about to do is wrong, like clearly wrong, then the sin is all the greater. Like, you better watch out. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it either in darkness, I think in the depths of our heart, the depths of our being, we always know. Like, we make excuses, and we always know. But I hear him in that when you really know and you still do the wrong thing, then woe, woe to you.
I think a lot of that confusion, and you see a lot of that confusion in the Peterson sphere in particular. It's one of the things that Peterson does well. He points out to you that you will be different. Future you is not you. Past you is also not you now. And people really hadn't thought about that. This pernicious universalism puts us in the position where we want to be the same in the future and be the same as we were in some idyllic past, nostalgic past, right? And we're not differentiating. I think that's the fascination with the story of Job, because the story of Job shows right universalism, which is your universal faith, rather than your universal psychology or your universal personality type or your universal stuff you have today, like where you live or what kind of job you have, or the universal sort of path of your career. Like, that's incorrect universalism because it's too based in material, right? Whereas in story of Job, the correct universalism is all this stuff is changing around Job and he's not changing. He's like, no, I'm on team God and I'm all in. And I don't care what these other people say about me or about how I've changed. I know I've changed, right? But not in this. Not in this. And I think that's why there's this obsession around the book of Job, which again, I'm like, really? It's not that hard, but hey, whatever. If that's what you're struggling with, that's what you're struggling with.
I have a lot of Christian friends who don't understand the book of Job. And I didn't understand it for a very long time. It was very confusing to me. And then it was like, Bible Project really helped in understanding. It's dealing with how bad things can get even when you're doing everything right, and it's not connected to doing the right thing. Even though the Bible talks about all this stuff that Israel will be blessed if they do this and this and this and this and that. We have this idyllic perception that if I do everything right, then everything should go well. And that's what we all hope for.
And I think especially of the church fathers looking at Job as a foreshadowing, a type of Christ, where it's like, yep, he's innocent and he still suffers. And when I was very early on in seminary and I first heard that idea, it did not click at all. But nice thing about being a seminarian is it's just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to accept it and someday I'll understand. And now a little more understanding. My eyes are opened a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, imagine you think you're doing everything right, but you're still suffering and you don't have Christ. So if you think you're doing everything right and you don't actually know how to get better and your suffering has no purpose until the end of time for the rest of your life. Yeah, I can understand suicide, let's say, right? Yeah. But if you're aiming with all your heart, striving with all your heart to do the right thing and suffering, either as a result or in spite of doing the right thing. I mean, what do we say? We give it up. We give it up. We give it up. Right? So I was raised Presbyterian Protestantism. It's like, God is love. God is good. Everything's good. There's no suffering as a Christian. There's like it wasn't the problem of pain, especially pain that is that is not clearly a result of our own sin. Yeah. That problem is not sufficiently addressed in at least as a kid. But understanding my faith better now, anything suffered is us bearing the glory of God. That's it. Or it's us giving up, like in the words of Pageau, right? It's like, it's us giving up. It's giving up. So, and I find myself at times these are like little graces, but I find myself at times, if I'm suffering in the right way at the right time, I can laugh and be joyful about the suffering. And those are grace-filled moments. They're rare, but I imagine saints, and I imagine as someone matures in their faith, they can get to the point where that is like consistent. It's like they know exactly, or their faith is so great that as they suffer, all it's doing is increasing their joy and their love. It's like, yeah, I can take this for you. I can take, like, I will do anything for that other person, that other entity, for the greater love and glory of God. Yeah,
that's what Saint Teresa of Calcutta said. Huh? If you love until it hurts, then you can keep on loving, and there won't be any more hurt, but there will be more love. And she really embodied that in a brilliant way. Yeah, Saint Mother Teresa. You know, we have to call her Saint Mother Teresa. Just doesn't sound right, so it's now Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Which is, yeah. And speaking of embodying things, you know, the saint's eyes, theirs were open, but mine are shutting. Neil, welcome to the Sunday Night Open Mic. Thank you for hopping on, and
thank you.
Glad that you've found Christ, found His church, and hopefully I'll see you around a little bit more.
This is going to sound really weird, but I'll just leave it as a dangler. So I play drums for the latest mass, I think, in the city where I'm in New Orleans. It's the latest mass on the West Bank, and it ends. Right now it's 9:30 my time, so it ends at 9 o'clock. So I can make like the last 20 minutes of this.
Okay.
But I will try to participate on an ongoing basis. But the problem is I can probably only make the tail end. So apologies.
Okay. Well, the tail end is good enough. And you know, if you want to see me and Ted and Dr. Jim in Arkansas, we've got the link down in the description. You can buy the tickets there. You can see me in the flesh rather than this two-dimensional projection, which is apparently also made. And it was great to have you all along for the ride. So happy Sunday, and God bless you all.
God bless.
Happy Sunday.
You. Take care.
Night, Father Eric.